Shabbat shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen, Rob Shmuel. Haven't said this in a while. Rashbi in the house. Rashbi, Rob Shmuel ben Yehoshua. I can tend to be a little quirky every now and then. With Judaism and with being a rabbi and all things Jewish. I like to have fun with Judaism. And I mean, I take it very, very seriously, as you all know. But for me, being a rabbi is not a job. It's not a career. Uh, it's not a profession. It's not even a calling. I just feel like I'm sharing my passion. And I love Judaism. I really do. When I think back on my life, a lot of my very happy memories involve Judaism, being in the synagogue, being in Israel, being with other Jews, being in Hillel when I was in college. It's just a real special thing for me. And when I do a lot of reading, I read through the Chumashim every week for the daily Parsha. As you see my books back there, I read the page of the day, the Daf Yomi for the Talmud, going through the Talmud. I've been reading Zohar, reading now a book on Bar Kokhba. And the most exciting thing for me about learning something new is sharing it, is getting up on the bima and incorporating it into a sermon or a Devar Torah or during a Torah study. It's kind of like my father, who is 93 years young, and Baruch Hashem, and bless his heart, he lived to be 120. He's, been an estate planner, but he loves golf. And, he's gone out and he's had the great fortune to play golf with some pros and a lot of dignitaries. And, for him, golf is a passion. And, for him to teach golf, he loves it. So kind of the same thing with me with Judaism. It's more than a profession for me. It's something I just love to do, like these 10-minute Torah that I do. So let's talk about this week's portion, Vaera. And I appeared. And this is Hashem, this is God talking to Moses. Now, Moses at first was kind of a reluctant prophet. And I like the way Rabbi Hertz, in the Hertz Chumash, defines the word Navi. They say that we interpret it as a prophet because that's what it is, but it really means a spokesperson. So a Navi, and Moses was the greatest, is someone who speaks on behalf. And Moses was speaking on behalf of God. What made Moses such a great prophet is the fact that he was reluctant. He was humble. He's like me, my voice is, I can't speak. There's the midrash about, when he was a little baby, a little kid in Pharaoh's court. They thought maybe there was somebody coming for Pharaoh that was going to unseat him. And Moses went and grabbed for the crown, and they thought maybe this is the kid. So they had these two pots with covers on them, and one had a hot coal, one had the crown. And, Moses was, Monios, as his Egyptian name was, per the Art Scroll Chumash, was reaching for the pan with the crown. It was covered. He didn't know. Angel came down, smacked his hand. He reached for the pan with the coal. It was hot. He put it in his mouth to cool his fingers, and he developed a speech impediment. So Moses was humble. God had to actually force him to go in and do it. And that's really what made him such a great prophet. He wasn't full of himself. He goes, all right, Israelites, here I come. Let's go. You don't have to bow down to me. I know you want to, but let's go. We're leaving. Don't worry about Pharaoh. I got this covered. He didn't do that. He was like, is me and my worthy, all this other stuff. So here, God charges Moses. He says, go with your brother Aaron, who will speak for you. And I will put the words in your mouth and you will tell him. And the two of you, two's better than one, will go to Pharaoh and confront Pharaoh and say, let my people go. And when Pharaoh hardens his own heart, I will send signs and wonders, which we know of as the plagues. So let's address a couple of concepts, because we know the story. We know that in this particular portion, you get the first 7 of the plagues. I'm going to try to do this by memory. Don't hold me to it. But, we had the blood in the Nile. The Nile was, the lifeblood of the Egyptians. Not only did it hydrate their grain, but it also was fish, and they ate a lot of fish. They were pescatarians because most of their animals were gods, so they ate fish. Then you had gnats, you had boils, you had cattle disease, murrain, you had, what's that, 4 or 5? You had cattle disease, I think I said that. Okay, so you can go through the portion, you can see what they are. And each time Pharaoh, first his magicians, his wise men were able to replicate some of that, and then finally they couldn't. And then, because Pharaoh just didn't buy the fact that it was some divine being, this God of whom he did not know, and he meant it. He didn't know. Nobody knew about Hashem. Everybody knew about each other's idols, but they didn't know that there was this one God. Who are these Hebrews that believe in this one omnipresent divine being that, created and maintains and sustains? They didn't know. So Moses says to him, okay, you decide when the blight's going to end. And frogs was the second one. And by the way, interesting thing about the frogs. So the Hebrew word Sephardim can mean frogs, it can mean other reptiles. There are some like Rashi that interprets it as a crocodile. Now, in my mind, an infestation of crocodiles, that would have been it. I mean, we all know what crocodiles do, right? And if it was the Nile turning to blood, and then the crocodiles, I think all he would have needed was two plagues, but they needed 10. They had to make a point. God had to make a point to Pharaoh. See, I'm going to give you 10 chances. And each time Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Now, those of you that are familiar with Kabbalah are aware, and a lot of Orthodox Jews, they say, okay, those who pursue righteousness are led on the path. Those who pursue evil are shown the way. You get what you want, intention, desire. You get what you get fulfilled, what you put your attention on. And Pharaoh kept hardening his heart. So finally God's like, okay, if this is what you want, you relent and then you go back on your word, then this is going to be your fate. And that's what happened. So Pharaoh did this to himself. When you read God hardened his heart, you think, we thought God was into divine justice. How is that divine justice? God gave Pharaoh what Pharaoh wanted, gave him all these chances, et cetera, et cetera. So there it is. Now, for me, the Torah isn't a history book. Well, it is, but that's just a minor aspect of the Torah in my mind. When I read the Torah, and when I expound Torah, and we would discuss it in my Torah studies and during services, we talk about the fact that the Torah is timeless. It's relevant today, just as it was 3,500 years ago. Let's look at Israel. How many times have our enemies, and I say "our" because, not just because I lived in Israel for 6 months on a kibbutz, and I feel like an Israeli, but these are our Jews. These are our brothers and sisters. And we all have to wrap our minds around this. We feel it when there's a disaster, when there's a war going on, but we have to know that there's a spiritual, religious connection between us and the nation state and the land of Israel. So in our portion, we get the first of the 7 plagues, the 7 signs and wonders. What's happened since Israel gained independence in 1948? There's been wars. And what kind of signs and wonders were wrought against our enemies? Well, missiles, bombs, right? The Air Force, tanks, the best trained army in the world. Is that not a sign and wonder toward our enemies, with God telling them, let our people go? Here's another sign and wonder. What happened? A terrorist group, they are a terrorist group, Hamas, went in and butchered and slaughtered over 1,200 of our brothers and sisters in Israel. And what happened? The same way the Egyptians enslaved our ancestors for like 120 years. And finally, they had their comeuppance, they had their karma, they had their results. The same way our enemies are seeing the wrath of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. Signs and wonders. Is God acting through our people? I kind of like to think God is. That's me. I think it's all related. We are the chosen people. Why are we the chosen people? Because we established a covenant with God. God said, I've got these 613 mitzvot, these commandments, this connection. And we said, we will do and we will hear. We committed to it. We decided we want to live a righteous life. We want to be an example to the world. We want to show the world how to fight, I know it sounds like an oxymoron, a righteous war. And that's what we're doing. We're doing our best to target the villains that perpetrated this and keep the civilian casualties to a minimum. And that is what we've done. Typically in a war, and I'll leave you with this, the ratio of collateral damage to enemy combatants is 3-to-1. Israel, it's been 0.08, less than in all the other wars. So while it takes God a while, so we can get an idea of what we're fighting for whatever reason God has, we are successful. We have prevailed. And remember that God is with us, and this is the message for this week. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.